There's a special kind of loneliness that comes from not being able to speak. Not the silence of an empty room, but the crushing silence that falls when you open your mouth and the words come out wrong. When the sounds you make are met with confused stares, or worse, laughter. I lived in that silence. My name is Sami, and for 16 years, my world was defined by the borders of my small town, the familiar sounds of my mother tongue, and the walls my broken English built around me. It all changed with a single sentence, a sentence that cut deeper than any knife, a sentence that, ironically, taught me more than any textbook ever could. My sanctuary was my bedroom, a small square with peeling blue paint, and a window that looked out onto a dusty street. The sounds of my life were a constant symphony. The sizzle of Tadka from the kitchen, the excited shouts of my little sister playing downstairs, the familiar hum of my father's scooter returning from a long shift. It was a warm, comfortable world. But on the internet, I was a ghost, a silent spectator in a global arena. One evening, my two best friends, Rizwan and Anush, were crammed into my room, our eyes glued to my second-hand laptop. On the screen was Vortex, a gaming legend. His fingers flew across the keyboard, pulling off a move that seemed impossible. A wave of admiration washed over me, so powerful it broke through my usual shyness. "I will type something," I announced, my voice a mix of fear and excitement. "Don't be stupid, Sami," Rizwan chuckled, not unkindly. "Why embarrass yourself?" But the impulse was too strong. My heart hammered against my ribs as my fingers, clumsy and unsure, found the keys. I typed slowly, painstakingly, rearranging the words in my head 3 times before I finally pressed enter. The sentence appeared in the global chat. "You play is good. How I can learning." For 3 long seconds, nothing happened. Then, a notification. My heart leapt. Was it Vortex? The reply was from a user named Toxic Wraith. "Stop. Your English is cancer." The word cancer glowed on the screen, pulsing with a venom that stole my breath. I knew that word. It was the word whispered in hospital corridors, the word that had carved hollows in my mother's cheeks when my grandfather was sick. It was a word of pain, of decay, of an ending. And this stranger had used it to describe my voice, my attempt to reach out. The shame was instant and scalding, a hot flush that spread from my cheeks down to my toes. Then the laughter started behind me. Rizwan was clutching his stomach, tears in his eyes. "I told you," he wheezed. "You sound like a fool. How I can learnin'?" he mimicked in a high-pitched voice. Anuj shook his head, a pitying smile on his face. "Give it up, Sami. English isn't for us. Our tongues are too heavy. Our brains aren't wired for it. You're just wasting your time." Their words, from my own friends, felt like a final nail in the coffin. The combination of the online cruelty and the offline mockery was a 1-2 punch that left me shattered. I didn't speak for the rest of the night. I just sat there, the words, "Your English is cancer," burning a hole in my mind. That night, I lay in bed, staring at the cracks on my ceiling. The humiliation was a physical weight on my chest. I thought about my English teacher, Mrs. Nair, who always said, "Beta, to learn a language, you must not be afraid to sound stupid." But I was afraid. I was terrified. The laughter was a cage. But then, around 2 a.m., something shifted. The shame began to curdle. It transformed into something else, something hot, sharp, and defiant. A raw, stubborn anger ignited in my gut. "I will show you." a voice whispered in the darkness. "I will show all of you." Purposefully, I got out of bed, found an old half-used notebook my father had brought from the factory, and on the very first page, I wrote in big, bold letters, "My English is cancer." And right beneath it, I made a vow. But I will fight it. I will learn English from my enemies. My revolution began at dawn. While my family slept, I sat on the floor by the window, where the weak Wi-Fi signal struggled to reach. My method was chaotic, desperate, and entirely my own. I weaponized everything I loved. I stopped watching gaming streams for entertainment. Instead, I watched them for education. I listened to the commentators, repeating their phrases until my mouth could form the strange shapes of English vowels. I found YouTube channels with kind-faced teachers who broke down grammar into simple, digestible pieces. I rediscovered Hollywood movies, but now I watch them with a detective's eye, first with subtitles in my language, then with English subtitles, pausing every few seconds to dissect a sentence, to mimic an accent, to feel the rhythm of the language. The comment sections, once a source of terror, became my training ground. Strategically, I would dive into the most toxic arguments about cricket and movies, not for the drama, but for the vocabulary. I looked up every insult, every slang term, every abbreviation. I learned that L meant loss, that salty meant bitter, and that goat wasn't just an animal. Each new word was a piece of armor, a weapon I was adding to my arsenal. I turned my daily chores into practice sessions. Washing the dishes became podcast time. I would stand at the sink, scrubbing pots, while listening to conversations between native speakers, my lips moving silently, forming the words they spoke. My walks to school became my pronunciation lab, muttering English phrases under my breath, earning a few strange looks from neighbors. Hopefully, on language exchange apps, I found my allies. Kindly, I met Maria from Brazil, who told me, "Your English is like mine, a little broken, but full of heart." Helpfully, I met David from England, who corrected my pronunciation without a hint of mockery. For every one toxic wraith, I found 10 people willing to help, to encourage, to connect. These small acts of kindness were like rain on parched earth, nourishing the seed of confidence that had begun to sprout. Months turned into a year. My factory notebook was now thick with words, its pages filled with phrases, idioms, and sentences. The word cancer on the first page was now surrounded by words like resilience, articulate, fluent, and confidence. The language was slowly transforming from a wall that kept me out into a bridge I was building word by word. The ultimate test came with the announcement of the inter-school English debate. The topic was "The Internet breeds more division than unity." My stomach flipped. It felt like the universe was challenging me directly. I found Rizwan and Anuj playing carom in the courtyard. "I'm going to try out for the debate team," I said, my voice quieter than I intended. Rizwan burst out laughing. "Still on this English madness? Sami, be practical. On a stage? In front of everyone? You'll freeze." "Remember the cancer comment?" Anuj added, his tone softer but still firm. "That was just a random guy online. This is a hall full of teachers and students from city schools. They will tear you apart." Their doubt was a cold splash of water, but it only made the fire in my chest burn hotter. I looked them in the eye, the same boys who had laughed behind me a year ago, and said, my voice steady and clear, "Just watch me." Intimidated. The auditorium on debate day was intimidating. It smelled of polish and anxiety. Nervously, the students from the prestigious city school looked like they'd stepped out of a British drama, their accents crisp and confident. Anxiously, when it was my turn to speak, my palms were slick with sweat. Blinded, the lights were blinding. Worried, I could see my principal's stern face, my teacher, Mrs. Neyer's worried eyes, and my friends sitting in the back row, their expressions a mix of skepticism and hope. Courageously, I took a deep breath, and in that moment, I didn't see the audience. Remembering, I saw my bedroom at 2 a.m. I saw the notebook. I heard the laughter.
The opposition speaks very beautifully about division, I began, my accent still present, but my words clear and deliberate. And they are correct. The internet can be a place of great ugliness. I paused, letting the silence hang heavy in the room. I know this personally. 1 year ago, a stranger online told me my English was cancer. A sharp, collective gasp rippled through the crowd. That word was meant to destroy me, I continued, my voice growing stronger with every word, to make me feel small and stupid. And for a little while, it worked. My own friends told me to give up. They said, "Sami, you cannot make it." I glanced at Rizwan and Anuj, who were now staring at their shoes, their faces flushed. But that insult became my first teacher, I declared, the passion ringing in my voice. That division became my motivation. I didn't have a fancy school or private tutors. I had YouTube. I had movie subtitles. I had the comments section, which taught me slang, and language apps, which taught me kindness from strangers in Brazil and England. The very internet that bred that division also gave me the tools to build a bridge. I built that bridge word by word, from cancer to clarity, from shame to strength. I spoke not from a rehearsed script, but from my soul. My words were my lived truth. So, does the internet breed division? Yes, but it also builds the most unlikely bridges. It connected a boy from a small town to the whole world. The question is not what the internet is, but what we choose to build with it. Do we choose to throw insults, or do we choose to build understanding? I made my choice. I built my bridge, and I am standing on it right now. For a second, there was absolute silence. Then the hall erupted. The applause was thunderous, a wave of sound that washed over me. Emotionally, Mrs. Nair was openly crying. The city school students were the first to stand, clapping with a look of genuine respect. We didn't win first place, but we came a close, honorable second. Backstage, Rizwan and Anuj found me. There were no jokes, no teasing. Rizwan just pulled me into a rough, tight hug. "I am so sorry, brother," he whispered, his voice thick. "You were incredible." That night, I didn't open someone else's YouTube channel. I created my own. I named it Sammy's Dictionary of Fire. In my first video, filmed in my simple bedroom, I held up my filled notebook to the camera. "They told me my English was cancer," I said, a confident smile on my face where once there was only shyness. They laughed. But you know what? You can fight cancer. You can survive it. You can grow stronger from it. Let your haters be your motivation. Let their insults be your first lesson. I ended the video with the words that had become my truth. A message for every person who has ever been told they aren't good enough. The most beautiful bridges in the world are built from the stones that were once thrown at you. The revenge was complete, and it was sweeter than I ever could have imagined.